Have you ever stopped to think that perhaps the biggest mistake you make every day is starting the morning trusting yourself? This is a truth that you need to know. Trying to control everything early in the morning can be what is stealing your peace and destroying your day before it even begins. Do you know what no one tells you? The more you let go of control, the more strength you find. It seems contradictory, doesn't it? And herein lies the secret. Surrendering your morning to God is not just an act of faith, but a practical strategy that will revolutionize the way you deal with daily challenges. Imagine waking up without the weight of anxiety, knowing that every decision, every step, is being guided by divine wisdom. This is more than possible. And the reward? An inner peace that transforms your entire day. Want to know how this really works? Stay with me until the end, and you will discover how a simple morning prayer can change everything. God's sovereignty is something that often escapes our understanding, but it is fundamental to understanding the purpose of our lives. God is in control of everything, from major global events to the smallest details of our daily lives. This awareness completely changes the way we face situations, because knowing that He guides everything perfectly gives us confidence in God. When human beings understand that they do not need to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, an inner peace arises because we are not alone on the journey. God's presence in our lives is constant, even when we do not realize it. He directs our steps and offers divine direction that can change the course of any situation. It is like being on a boat during a storm, but knowing that there is an experienced captain at the helm. This confidence allows us to face life's adversities with serenity, knowing that ultimately there is a greater plan for us. No matter how much we try to control everything around us, it is liberating to recognize that our human limitations will never be greater than God's power. He sees beyond what we can see, and His sovereignty brings inexplicable comfort, especially in times of uncertainty. When we place our anxieties and worries in His hands, we open up space to experience true inner peace, knowing that God takes care of every detail. Starting the day trusting in God is an act that transforms the way we face the following hours. When a person dedicates their first moments in the morning to a morning prayer, asking for divine guidance, they begin the day with a sense of purpose and calm. It is at this moment that trust in God is renewed, bringing the inner peace needed to face the challenges of the day. This simple habit of seeking guidance early in the morning strengthens the mind and spirit. Many people start the day rushing, already thinking about tasks and commitments, but they forget that true strength comes from God. When we seek divine guidance in the morning, it is not just about having a more productive day, but about having a day in which decisions are guided by something greater. A practical example is taking 5 minutes before anything else to pray, reflect, and place the day in His hands. This creates space for God to speak to the heart and help us avoid impulsive choices. Trusting in God in the morning also has the power to alleviate anxiety. Knowing that you are not alone, that there is a divine force guiding you, completely changes the way you face challenges. Even if the day brings unexpected events, the inner peace that comes from morning prayer and trust in God's care provides a sense of stability. After all, God is the one who never fails to guide you, and He always knows the best path to follow. Making decisions without seeking divine guidance can be one of the greatest sources of stress in a person's life. The feeling of always having to get it right, without being sure that you are making the right choice, ends up creating an emotional burden that is difficult to bear. It is common that when trying to control everything alone, the mind becomes overloaded, causing anguish and anxiety. After all, the uncertainties of the future can seem unbearable when we do not trust God to guide us. When someone tries to make all the decisions on their own, the burden becomes heavy. Life is full of uncertain moments, and trying to predict every outcome is impossible. It's like trying to navigate turbulent waters without a map or compass. However, when we trust in God, this burden is lightened. Morning prayer, asking for His guidance, brings inner peace that we don't have to do everything alone. God calls us to cast our worries on Him because He cares about every detail of our journey. Those who place their decisions in God's hands find greater serenity to face life. Even in small matters, such as choosing the best path for a project at work or knowing how to deal with a complicated relationship, divine guidance makes all the difference. God, in His infinite wisdom, can show us paths that we would never have seen on our own. When we surrender to Him, we realize that we don't have to carry the weight of choices on our shoulders. Surrendering our path to God is more than just words. It is an attitude of the heart that requires total trust. This means giving up control and allowing Him to guide each step, knowing that His divine direction is always the best choice, even when we don't understand it right away. By giving up control, we are acknowledging our human limitations and God's infinite wisdom. This act brings deep inner peace, as it takes away from us the burden of trying to predict the future. A practical example of how to give your way to God is to start the day with a morning prayer saying, "Lord, today I give all my decisions and steps into your hands." It may seem simple, but this attitude of trust in God is transformative. When we stop trying to solve everything with our own strength and allow Him to guide us, we begin to live more lightly. God knows what is best for us, and trusting Him is the biggest step toward experiencing this truth. Giving your way to God also means accepting that things will not always turn out as we expect, but that, in the end, He is guiding us toward the best. This involves patience and faith, because the answer is not always immediate or the way we imagine. However, the certainty that God is in control brings immense comfort. Knowing that we are not alone in our daily decisions is a great relief, because by trusting in His guidance, we can be sure that we are on the right path. Trusting God completely is the path to achieving inner peace that transcends circumstances. When a person trusts that God is in control of their life, fears and anxieties lose their strength. Even in moments of uncertainty or chaos, it is possible to feel a deep tranquility, because we know that God has a plan. This trust does not eliminate challenges, but it transforms the way we face them with serenity and security. Trusting in God is like a shelter in the midst of a storm. Imagine a person in the midst of a difficult situation at work or at home, where everything seems to go wrong. When they choose to trust God, instead of despairing, they find strength and inner peace to face whatever comes their way. This trust is renewed daily, especially during morning prayer, which reminds us to place everything in His hands and seek His divine guidance. It is important to understand that the peace that comes from God is not something fleeting or fragile. It is a peace that remains, even when the world around us is in chaos. It arises from an unshakable trust that God is taking care of every detail. By trusting in God, we let go of the need to understand everything and control less, knowing that He has already prepared the best path for us. This surrender brings an inner peace that nothing can steal. Proverbs 3:5-6 invites us to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and not to lean on our own understanding. This passage is powerful because it reminds us that no matter how much we try to understand life and its complexities, human wisdom is limited. God, in His infinite wisdom, sees beyond what we can see and offers us divine guidance. Applying this truth in our daily lives means stopping trusting only in our abilities and seeking God's guidance in every decision. A clear example of how to live this passage is during moments of uncertainty. When we are faced with an important decision, whether in our career or in relationships, we may be tempted to rely solely on our own logic or on the advice of others. However, Proverbs 3:5-6 teaches us to seek divine guidance, praying and asking God to show us the best path. This daily practice allows us to live with greater trust in God, knowing that He will straighten our paths. Applying Proverbs 3:5-6 also brings inner peace because it frees us from the burden of trying to understand and control everything. We do not need to have all the answers. We just need to trust that God, with His infinite wisdom, is working on our behalf. Morning prayer can be a special time to remember this truth, placing every detail of our day in His hands. In this way, we live with greater peace, knowing that God is in control. The silence of the morning offers a precious moment to connect with God in a deep and sincere way. It is at this moment, before the noise and rush of the day begin, that we can hear God's voice more clearly. Seeking divine guidance early in the morning, through prayer and reflection, not only strengthens our trust in God, but also brings inner peace to face the challenges that lie ahead. These minutes of silence help us to put our priorities in the right place, with our hearts aligned with God's will. Setting aside time to seek God in the morning doesn't have to be complicated. It can be something as simple as sitting in a quiet place, closing your eyes and letting silence fill your soul, asking God to guide each step of the day. Morning prayer in this context is a sincere dialogue with Him, asking for wisdom to make the right decisions. Small habits like these, when cultivated daily, help us to perceive God's presence in every detail of our journey. The silence of the morning also makes room for the person to recognize that, before any task or commitment, the most important thing is to listen to what God has to say. Even when life's worries are present, this moment of seeking reminds us that divine guidance is what truly leads us safely. The peace that arises from this silence is proof that God is always ready to guide us. We just need to take the time to listen to Him. Divine guidance is not only manifested in the big moments of life, but also in the small details of everyday life. Often, God's answers come in simple and unexpected ways in routine situations. It could be a conversation, a coincidence, or even a feeling of inner peace that guides us to make the right decision. Being attentive to these daily manifestations of God helps us realize that He is present and taking care of every aspect of our lives. A practical example of this is when, in the middle of a busy day, a person feels a sudden need to call a friend. Perhaps, without realizing it, God is using that moment to bring comfort to someone. Or when, in the midst of several options at work, a clear sense of which path to follow emerges. These small touches of divine guidance often go unnoticed, but they are part of the way God guides us. It all depends on being sensitive and attentive to these subtle signs. When we become accustomed to recognizing God's hand in the little things, our trust in Him becomes even stronger. Morning prayer is an excellent way to open our eyes to these daily directions. Asking God to show us the way, even in the details, creates an intimate and constant relationship with Him. In this way, we begin to realize that divine guidance is present not only in the great challenges, but also in the seemingly simple moments of everyday life. Anxiety often arises when we try to control what is beyond our reach. We live in a world full of uncertainty, and this feeling of helplessness can generate constant worry. However, when a person trusts in God, this weight diminishes because they surrender to Him what they cannot control. Trusting in divine guidance allows anxiety to be replaced by inner peace, knowing that God is in control of every situation, no matter how complex it may seem. Dealing with anxiety can be a huge challenge, but a simple practice like morning prayer can make all the difference. Taking time in the morning to talk to God, expressing your fears and concerns, is an important step toward letting go of control and trusting Him. For example, instead of starting the day checking the news or social media, starting with prayer and a moment of reflection brings greater calm to face the pressures of everyday life. God offers this peace when we open our hearts and place our anxieties before Him. Trusting in God is a powerful antidote to anxiety. Instead of trying to solve everything on our own, we can rest in the fact that God is always present, guiding every detail of our lives. This understanding changes the way we face daily challenges. Even when things seem out of control, the certainty that there is divine direction brings serenity and strength. Thus, the heart finds rest and the mind, tranquility. Many people can testify to how their lives have changed when they trust in divine direction. Stories of people who, in moments of doubt and uncertainty, chose to surrender their concerns to God and saw doors open to them are sources of great inspiration. For example, a woman who was facing financial difficulties reported that, after a sincere morning prayer, she felt inner peace and days later received an unexpected job opportunity. These stories show how trusting in God can transform seemingly hopeless situations. Another impactful example is of a man who, faced with a difficult decision at work, decided to seek divine guidance. He prayed for wisdom, and instead of acting impulsively, he felt that he should wait a little longer before taking any action. The answer came through an informal conversation with a colleague who gave him a new perspective, completely changing his decision. These moments of clarity and inner peace do not come by chance, but by trusting in God and His guidance. Testimonies like these remind us that God's guidance never fails. When we trust in Him, even without knowing what the future holds, we experience a peace that allows us to move forward with confidence. These stories reinforce that God is always taking care of His children, even in the simplest details. By trusting Him with our lives, we can live with the certainty that He will always guide us on the best path, bringing unexpected blessings and solutions we could never imagine. Morning prayer is a powerful moment to align our hearts with God's will and ask for His guidance for the day ahead. It is at this moment that, amid the silence and tranquility of the morning, we can connect with Him in a deeper way. Asking God to guide our steps and give us wisdom in each decision not only brings inner peace, but also strengthens us to face daily challenges with confidence. A simple prayer such as, "Lord, guide me today in all my decisions. May your divine guidance be present in every step I take," can make a huge difference. This practice does not need to be complex or long, but it does need to be sincere. Setting aside a few minutes upon waking to talk to God, expressing the concerns of your heart and asking for discernment, is a way to start the day with the certainty that He is in control. Furthermore, by practicing morning prayer daily, we create a habit of dependence on God, recognizing that without Him, our strengths are limited. This moment of surrender is essential to bring clarity and peace to the decisions that arise throughout the day. During prayer, a person can pray not only for their own life, but also for those around them. They can ask God to bless their friends, family, and co-workers, opening paths for everyone. This act of intercession also connects us even more with divine guidance, as it teaches us to look beyond our own needs and trust that God takes care of all the details, big or small. Trusting God in the morning does not mean that the day will be problem-free, but it brings an inner peace that helps us deal with the uncertainties that arise along the way. As the day progresses, unexpected situations may occur, and a person may feel destabilized. However, when one begins the day seeking divine guidance, there is a certainty that, regardless of the unforeseen events, God is in control. It is this trust in God that gives us the strength to face adversity with serenity and wisdom. During the day, there will always be times when things don't go as planned. It could be breaking news, a problem at work, or a difficulty at home. At these times, remembering your morning prayer and surrendering to God helps you stay calm. A good exercise is to take a brief pause and reconnect with God through a short prayer when you feel anxiety rising. Something like, "Lord, I know that you are in control. Give me peace to deal with this in the best way possible," can be enough to renew your strength. It is important to remember that trusting in God does not mean that everything will turn out as we wish, but that He will be present in every situation. Accepting that we will not always have the answers or total control over what happens is part of learning to depend on Him. In this way, a person can face uncertainties with more ease, knowing that God is guiding each step, even in the most difficult moments. Life becomes much easier when we stop relying exclusively on our own understanding. Our human wisdom, as valuable as it is limited and flawed. We often act impulsively, relying solely on our logic, and we end up facing frustrations. However, when we trust in God and seek His divine guidance, we receive a clarity that transcends our understanding. God sees beyond what we can see, and trusting in Him brings an inner peace that frees us from the burden of trying to understand and control everything on our own. One of the greatest benefits of not relying solely on our own understanding is the freedom it brings. We do not need to have all the answers, nor do we carry the burden of trying to predict the future. When a person surrenders their concerns and decisions to God, they experience a serenity that allows them to focus on the present, knowing that God is taking care of the future. Morning prayer is an excellent opportunity to ask for this wisdom, saying, "Lord, guide my steps today, for I trust in your wisdom more than in my own understanding." Trusting in God's wisdom also saves us from many mistakes and regrets. By seeking His guidance, we avoid hasty decisions that could have negative consequences. This process of daily surrender teaches us to depend more on God and less on ourselves, resulting in better choices and a more balanced life. Ultimately, divine understanding always leads us on the best path, even when we cannot see it clearly at the time. Starting the day with God by our side is like having an experienced guide leading us through every situation, big or small. When we dedicate the first moments of the morning to sincere prayer, asking for divine guidance, we already pave the way for a more balanced day. God gives us the strength to face each challenge with greater serenity. By trusting in God early on, a person acquires a confidence that sustains the mind and heart during difficult situations, maintaining inner peace even when the unexpected happens. During the day, there are many times when we may feel overwhelmed or unsure about which decision to make. However, by trusting that God is by our side, we face these situations with greater clarity. A good example is when, in the midst of a difficult task, a person remembers the prayer they said in the morning and seeks to reconnect with God through a brief prayer or pause. This simple act of surrender and trust in God renews our strength and gives us the assurance that we are not alone. Even if the day doesn't go exactly as planned, knowing that God is present throughout each moment brings us a feeling of gratitude. Facing the day with God by our side allows us to accept the ups and downs more lightly, understanding that He is guiding us along paths that are often beyond our understanding, but that always aim for our good. At the end of the day, the peace of having trusted in God from the beginning renews our faith for the next day. Now that you understand the power of trusting in God every morning, the question remains, are you willing to experience this change in your life? It's not just a habit, but a complete transformation in the way you face daily challenges. If you've been seeking inner peace, this may be the answer you've been waiting for. Imagine what it would be like to wake up every day with the certainty that God is guiding your steps, bringing divine direction in every decision, big or small. And now, what are you going to do with all this knowledge? My invitation to you is simple. Put this into practice the next morning. Try this trust in God and see the impact it will have on your day. What have you been doing to start your day with the peace that only God can give us? Leave your comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, don't miss this opportunity. Turn on notifications to continue learning about how to live a life guided by God, with peace and purpose.